Let's recall the 2009 H1N1 flu pandemic. It spread, despite all the efforts of the World Health Organization. Of course, nothing could be done with this epidemic, since it erupted during the period of the weakest solar radiation. After all, just as after surgery, the surgical room is sterilized with ultraviolet lamps, the atmosphere of the Earth naturally sterilizes ultraviolet solar radiation. The founder of heliocentric electromagnetic meteorology Milan Stevansevic saw a correlation between weak ultraviolet radiation and the emergence of large-scale epidemics of infectious diseases. Although NASA has not yet linked these phenomena, images from American satellites confirm that the ultraviolet radiation of the Sun at the time the coronavirus appeared was even weaker than during the period of H1N1 propagation. In 2009, the level of ultraviolet radiation of the Sun was 8 units, and in 2019 only 5 units. The lack of ultraviolet radiation, that is, disinfection of the atmosphere, in both cases led to the unhindered spread of the virus in the Northern Hemisphere. The Belgrade School of Meteorology believes that the level of ultraviolet radiation is also seasonal. In winter, the level is much lower than in summer. During maximum solar activity, ultraviolet radiation reaches 35 units. But in the period between two cycles of solar activity, ultraviolet radiation reaches the lowest levels or disappears. On March 11, the outbreak of AP 2758 on the Sun caused an increase in ultraviolet radiation. In the geoeffective position, one X-ray emission was recorded, which became the first after more than 300 days of inactivity of the Sun. When a flash on the Sun occurs on a side not visible from Earth, the level of ultraviolet radiation decreases. Its next growth is expected in early April 2020, and entry into a geoeffective position is expected on the 7th of April, when the radiation will be sent directly to the Earth. The level of ultraviolet radiation at the surface of the Earth depends on the radiated power and density of the clouds over a particular place. Although ultraviolet radiation has a diffuse nature, the influence of clouds is great, since they reduce the level of ultraviolet radiation above the surface of the Earth. Water in the atmosphere is an element that creates the effect of a greenhouse, so exposure to ultraviolet radiation also depends on cloud cover. Clouds weaken all types of energy emanating from the Sun. An increase in temperature does not play any role in the disinfection of the atmosphere, so flu can appear even when the daytime temperature is high. Ultraviolet radiation is a natural phenomenon that makes possible the existence of man on planet Earth, but strong ultraviolet radiation is very dangerous for human health. Fortunately, nature has provided for everything. When activity on the Sun grows, cloudiness intensifies, as clouds are formed by the combination of hydrogen and oxygen, which are released by the Sun, and therefore the level of ultraviolet radiation decreases. It is expected that weak X-ray radiation will reach a maximum on the 7th of April, when the AP 2758 volcano appears on the visible side of the Sun, which disinfects the atmosphere more. No matter how weak the effect of X-rays, it plays a large role in the total radiation of the Sun. Studies show that pandemics can occur only between the two cycles of activity, when the activity of the Sun is minimal, that is, when the level of ultraviolet radiation in winter is the lowest. Epidemics occur only at the beginning and at the end of the solar cycle. Seasonal influenza with variable variability depends on the current activity of the Sun. The weakest viruses in the period of maximum activity of the Sun. For the disinfection of the atmosphere, the angle of incidence of ultraviolet and X-ray radiation plays a large role, since the level of radiation per unit area during the day depends on it. It must be said that the transition period between the 24th and 25th cycles of solar activity is exceptionally long. The activity of the Sun reached an extraordinary minimum. The level of activity of the Sun in 2019 to 2020 is the lowest since 1810. Temperature has no effect on COVID-19. If NASA's forecast comes true, then in 10 years we should expect another mutation of the virus.